Hi everyone, in this video is just going to be a quick one. This is a reply to a friend on Facebook who has just sent me a quick message saying any tips for a wedding that she's doing tomorrow. It's for a friend and there's no money involved, so it's pretty casual. Okay, so my tips for the most basic friend's wedding, you helping out, taking some photos are... First one I would say is make sure that you get a photo of every single guest that is at the wedding. One of the things I try and do is I try and get people as they are coming out of the wedding reception themselves, or going into the bit where they're having the meal. Or if I can't do that, then I'll get them when they're all around the table. I'll try and show you an example here. So just a simple one, like before everyone starts getting stuck into their food, I'll ask everyone at the table to shuffle around for me with my super wide angle lens, which is usually the Tokina 11-16mm, and that means I've got a good enough depth of field here. What I'm shooting at f4, 60th of a second, and I'm using flash as well. That's our thing. You can see the fact that I'm using flash because on this this metallic wall, you can see it reflected there. But it's absolutely fine. Shooting all in RAW, that's the other thing to do. It just means that afterwards what I can do is I can quickly grab the brush, increase the exposure a little bit, and just swipe it over the people which are important or a little bit in shade. Let's see, bring them up. And then bingo, that's the people which we want in the shot sorted, and that means you haven't missed anyone in the photo. And that's always a good one to add as like a whole bunch of shots at the end of the album, or just for, you know, to say you didn't miss anyone. Another thing I would say is whenever you're shooting a lot of the weddings is have a dedicated flash. Don't use your pop-up flash because that always gives you a pretty naff looking light. And always bounce it off something. I generally do that, but then I stick this bit back in and I will walk around taking photos like that, bouncing off the ceiling. Let's see if I can show you any photos here. So even here, this is at f1.7. I'm using a little bit of flash on some of these shots, but I'm trying to make it as subtle as possible. The flash is only a tiny little bit to make sure that they're not totally in darkness, because a lot of the weddings can be very dark. The other thing I would say is white balance wise, keep it warm. This wedding that I was shooting was in the pouring rain. It was a horrible, damp, overcast and rainy and windy day. So for the white balance, I put it around about 6,000, and with that gives the place a lovely warm feeling to the shots, and like everyone looks nice and warm. The other thing is, if you're shooting with your camera, I usually use spot metering if it's on people's faces, and especially if it's indoors. So for example, this location here, you've got the rain outside. I don't want to see the rain outside, so I'm not using 3D matrix metering. I'm using spot metering, and I'm spot metering off the people's faces. Now with a lot of Scottish weddings it's quite difficult because a lot of people are in black. So if you're even doing the centre weighted, what we'll see is a whole pile of black in like a person's suit. Like for example here in the suit and the jacket of a Scottish wedding, it's very dark. So again, I'm still spot metering off a head or off a face rather than anything else. In terms of ISO, I'm working with the D700, so I'm happily shooting all my shots at 3200. I don't have any problem with that at all. If you're shooting with a crop sensor camera, I would say maybe go up to that if you absolutely have to. Otherwise, try and keep it around about 2200 as your maximum, or try and bring a little bit more flash. Really try and work the flash and the ambient light together if you can, which means using a slower shutter speed but still using flash. I'll show you some examples on the dance floor as well. So when you're on the dance floor, you can start playing around, adding some movement to your shots, adding some blur to your shots gives a much more of a action-packed scene on the dance floor. So for example here, it's just a simple shot of them on the dance floor, nothing really moving, nothing really happening. But later on, let's see if I've got any of the slightly more move-tastic shots. So here, it was a little bit of a zoom and a flash. So as you can see, the people in the background are a little bit blurry. Okay, they're a bit blurry. Not really probably going to use that one. Let's see any of the ones. Yeah, so twisting shots here. Okay, it's a little bit blurry, but they're okay enough. As you can see, the people at the sides, it's all kind of action happening around there. So feel confident to shoot, what was that? That was at a 1/4 of a second photo. So I'm taking a photo and I'm rotating it round, and that's getting them fairly sharper than everyone else in the background. Let's see, and like, make sure you get pictures of the grandparents that are there and just all the guests and everyone. What to do is follow the bride and groom as much as possible, because they might be with relatives, and all you need to do is be there, and they can turn around and go, oh, let's get a photo in front of the, if you're doing it kind of photojournalistic rather than let's do a stage shot. Obviously, with shooting in RAW, you've got full control over the white balance afterwards, because generally when you're indoors and it's the disco time, the lighting can be all over the place, so don't even touch JPEG. But what I would say is still keep it warm. Like if I bring this down to, what the heck would be the white balance? The white balance off her dress, it looks a bit dull. You don't want an accurate white balance on this. So here I would definitely warm it up. Okay, I've got the tint a little bit better, so it's not in the middle where there is kind of really purpley, so there's obviously some purple lights in the dance floor, and then I've obviously got a little bit more ability with the RAW to change the exposure afterwards, and I'd say that looks a little bit better there. And also feel free to crop as much as you want. This is a wedding, this is not like a portrait headshot where you've had time to set things up. You're just shooting it as you would. Here I was just shooting with the 50mm f1.4 and I was shooting it at f1.7. Still, I was using flash. So what I would say is, if you are shooting a wedding, if you've got a crop sensor camera, the Tamron 17-50 f2.8 would be a brilliant lens for 90% of your shots. When it's indoors and it's dark, getting a 1.4 whatever would be really good, because then you've got a great shallow depth of field and you can still have faster shutter speeds with good focus on the actual subjects. But yeah, so that's the main things. Make sure you shoot every single guest. Make sure you get some shots of the party, and if you have to do anything, if you want to do something which is a bit more interesting, here I was using off-camera flash. I was shooting into an umbrella off to the right. As you can see, we've got nice soft shadows in the background there. But that's probably a little bit more advanced. I'll do that in a future video, saying the kind of absolute basic minimums for a wedding. But just if this is you doing it for a mate and it's just no money involved whatsoever, definitely first thing you need is an f2.8. If you're a crop sensor camera, the 17-50, absolutely fantastic. That'll cover everything. Bounce your flash as much as possible. Use that, it'll give a little bit of light going forward, but you mainly want the light to be from everywhere else. Spot meter off the people's faces, not their clothes, and make sure you get all the guests. So that's my little tips for you, Isabel. Hope that helps. Cheers, bye-bye.